Got a 365 GTC4 up on the lift. It's just a driver, but the exhaust is shot. So I've got a new one coming in, and it looks, that the center section is pretty rotted. So what I'm going to do, and this one's pretty thin, it's starting to go too, as you can see here, but the rest of it doesn't look bad. So what I'm going to do is, luckily we can cut these, take these out here and take this center section out, and I'm having the center section made, and I should be able to just replace the center section and be on its way. But the other thing I need to do is the motor mounts. I don't know if you can see that in there, but the motor mounts are pretty collapsed and rotted. And this is a good time to do this, simply because with the exhaust off, I can actually jack the engine up just enough, because the clearance issues that I have is just where this is. So I'm hoping that with the exhaust off, I can actually move the engine up just enough to sneak these motor mounts out. So let's get to work. So getting the exhaust out was the easy part. Getting this guy out, now that was a pain in the butt. But look how bad this thing is compressed and dry rotted. Let me show you what I did. I started out hoping that I could get this thing out, the motor mount, without having to take everything off the top side. So what I did have to do was, I realized that I had to remove one of the headers. So this header, there's two pieces. So you can see these are 3 cylinders. So there's 6 header or 6 outlets, and they're basically come in pairs. And the one that was covering the motor mount was the one on the front. So I had this idea that maybe I could try to see if I could lift up the engine, unbolt the motor mount, and get to those bolts and try to get at. So I started to do that, couldn't get the clearance. So the only choice was to take the air filter out. And like I mentioned before, the air filter has a whole bunch of little velocity stacks. So they all have to come out before I can actually take the air filter or the air filter assembly out, so that you could get to the underside of this thing. I was trying to see whether or not I might have to take one carburetor out, but what luckily happened was, once I got the air filter out, I could reach around the carburetors and get underneath there and get to the headers without having to disconnect the carburetors. Because again, the less I take apart, the better. Because think about it, if I had to take these carburetors out, I have to take the fuel lines out, I have to take the linkages off, I have to take all this stuff off just to take, just to get underneath here. So I reached around the carburetors and was able to get one header off. Luckily, I got the one header off, and then was able to manipulate that out of this hole without having to take the other header off. So I jacked the engine up as high as I could, and was able to finally get the motor mount unbolted enough so that I can get that piece out. Well, now that I got one side out, I know what to do with doing the other side, but let me just show you what is a pain in the butt here that I have to do. The reason why I'm trying my best not to take everything apart is that to take this air filter out, look at that. All the little velocity stacks, every one of them is bolted in, and this air filter will not come out. There's no way to take it out of here without taking each velocity stack out. There's just not enough clearance. So, and the other thing that's crazy about these C4s is, thank goodness this is a new air filter. Because when those little wires get bent and they start to fray, and you're sticking your hand in there to unbolt, because there's no other way to get to those little, each velocity stack has 2 little bolts or nuts. You got to get your hand in there. You can imagine how cut up your hands can get when that air filter is getting a little old and bent and all that other stuff. So at least I have one positive thing about this whole process. But yeah, I mean, that's what I got to do to take the air filter, just the air filter out. I think I managed to be able to do this without having to take the carburetors out, but no, still pretty tedious. But here we go. Got the motor mount out of the Ferrari 365 GTC4, cleaned it up, took out the old mount, pretty collapsed and dry rotted, ordered a new one, and wah wah, too big. I'm gonna have to order another one. Now you know why it takes so long to fix these cars. Got the correct motor mount. Should be better than what I had. Now it's time to put them in. So I don't know how well you can see up in there, but new motor mount is in, the heat shield is in, exhaust is in, or at least the exhaust headers are in. So yeah, that was one heck of a job, but the engine sits a lot better. I mean, if you look at the way this engine sits here on the cross member, it's a lot better. Yeah, it's a little greasy, I know. They got some oil leaks and everything like that we got to take care of eventually. But yeah, the motor mounts really do help keep the engine level and everything else. So now the next step is just to get the exhaust going. I'm so excited to open this box. It's a exhaust system. Been waiting months for this from Time Valve. I mean, Mike is really busy down there, so I don't blame him. I mean, I know that he certainly takes care of me and you know, knows that I'm, you know, not that I'm a priority. I mean, everybody with a Ferrari is a priority, but I ordered this exhaust back in the winter. It's March now, so about 3 months later, it's finally arrived. But I mean, he told me he was about a month and a half to 2 months behind, and I kind of feel like when you say you're a month and a half behind, I expect it to be 2 to 3, you know, so it's no surprise there. But you know, just to get it, at least it's here. You know, a lot of times these guys will, you know, I get it. A lot of these vendors, they don't want to disappoint you, so they try to make promises, or at least they don't want to tell you the truth. So what happens is when they say, oh yeah, I'm a month out, and they're just trying to say that to keep you from going to somewhere else, although there's not much choice with this stuff. But whoop, I got this tiny little table I'm working on just to unpack this thing, trying not to drop it all on the floor. It might be easier for me to just take it on the floor to show you what I got. But he's been working on this thing for me, and what it is it's just it's a really nice copy. He's left a lot of this stuff unpainted so that I can install it, weld it on, and then paint it later. So here we go. So there's one exhaust. Pretty nice. I mean, he's tacked the flanges on, so they're just roughly in place. And if they're good, then I'll fit them in the car. So along with the 2 sets of mufflers, I also have the hangers that we'll need to put these up. So what I've asked Mike to do is leave the hangers loose, unwelded. So he's made them like this. So what I can do is I could put them on the car and then tack them in place so they're exactly where the hangers are supposed to be. What I was worried about is if you made these things and they were welded on there, we stand the chance of having the alignment wrong, and then everything looks kind of not perfect. So like my feeling is, you know, the little extra step of putting these hangers on and everything is loose, then I can tack it in place. And then since I have to get the flanges re-welded on permanently, you know, I'll probably send them out and get them TIG welded. It's good to, you know, might as well get these hangers done correctly. So my feeling is it is an extra step, but since I'm already doing an extra step for the rest of the car, or the rest of the exhaust with the welding, might as well get the perfect hangers on. So these are what came in the extra little package here inside the exhaust. So I think the start of all this is I'm going to hang the exhaust with the flanges and see how they are, and then what I'll do is from there we'll figure out how these hangers are going to go on. I think I could support it without the hangers for now, and then we'll get this all going. But and then once I have everything in place, then I'll get these things welded in place. Let me show you what I got here. So there's the rusty old one. Here's the new one. It looks like, you know, it's pretty good, pretty close. I may smooth these welds down just a little bit, just to make them look a little bit better, but it just depends on what's seen. When I hang it up on the car, we'll take a look and see what it looks like. But you know, what a difference. And look how thin, you can hear how thin that is. Way better. So let's start getting this thing all together. All right, so I got the exhaust roughly bolted in place. Flanges seem to line up pretty well, and there's enough play. So what I have to do now is just kind of get these hangers kind of marked and in place. Really kind of hard to get a marker up there, but I think I have them roughly in place. What I'll do, just to be sure, is I'm going to tack them and then rehang it. It's, you know, just, it's a lot of little extra steps, but I think it's worth it just to make sure that this thing fits absolutely perfectly. But take this one down, mark it, tack it, put it back up, and see where we are. But so far so good. The flanges line up. I think everything's going to fit beautifully. I got it just about done. I put all the hangers in, tacked them in place, and put the isolators in, got all the flanges lined up, tacked in place. And not a lot to film because I'm just basically standing under exhaust, trying not to get red hot cherries in my hair, but managed to get all of them done. This one over here is also welded up and ready to go. I mean, like I said, the tacks are just there to kind of keep the hangers in place, so then I can get these things welded up a little bit better. This is a stainless steel. I ordered a stainless steel center section just so it'll last forever. But I think it's 304 stainless. It's not magnetic. So I'm going to send it out and have it welded up correctly, and that way these flanges will look better. I mean, you won't see a lot of this stuff because it'll all be painted black when it's done, but you know, it's just going to look nicer to me, and it'll also be painted black, and it'll be ready to go. Moving on. So next step, get this exhaust welded in place. I got the exhaust back from the welder, painted it, and then I had to install it. But I put it up on jack stands just simply because trying to get this car up on the lift when I've got too many other cars just sitting on lifts waiting to get parts, and it was just easier for me to just do it in place. But when I had to do it in place, it's harder to shoot underneath the car when you're laying on the floor, rolling around, trying to get bolts and everything else lined up. So you're just going to have to take my word for it. It's in and ready to go. So I take this car out, clean it up, and get it ready to go home.